Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, built our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our first-hand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast. Hello, We Got You fam. Happy Monday. I hope you're having a great start to the week, whatever you're doing. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in as always and listening. This is my first solo episode doing video for the We Got You podcast. And I'm not going to lie, it's a little weird seeing myself and talking to myself. So thanks for listening. I know it won't be weird when it's coming out and you're watching it, but it is certainly weird talking to myself, seeing myself here doing this. But anyways, we're just going to jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about what I value in a second shooter coming from a videographer perspective. Now, for a lot of you who are photographers who are listening, Hannah did an episode just about 2 weeks ago that was what she values in a second shooter as a photographer. I think that both of them cross each other a lot in terms of what we value. So I think that both episodes are really good to listen to, but I just kind of wanted to give a fresh perspective, more specifically for videographers. Kind of starting to go through like my own journey. When I had first started out video, I honestly second shot, not looking back at it now, I wish I second shot more, to be honest with you. Just being realistic. I think that's something that I wish I would have done more of. To be fully transparent, when I first started, there wasn't a lot of videographers for me to really second shoot. And I was a little shy, not really knowing, who to reach out to or what to do. But I second shot a few times within my first year. And honestly, what I learned from second shooting was worth so much more than I think a lot of people give it credit for. I think sometimes it can be easy to just show up, you're getting paid to help, which is great. And then you just move on. But even now, having the opportunity to second shoot for others, I learn so much. And I think that it is so important to continue to second shoot for other people, whether you're in your first year of business or whether in your sixth year of business. I think that that's something that a lot of people overlook. And honestly, I've learned so much from being able to see firsthand how other videographers shoot, what they're thinking of, what they're filming. And that experience firsthand, like seeing it in person, is so vital and is so taken advantage of. So regardless of whether you're just starting out in your business or maybe you're 10 years in, I encourage you to still second shoot every once in a while, to still get that experience and to still learn as much as you can. But yeah, so when I was in my first year, I did a few second shooting gigs for some local videographers in Oregon. And yeah, I learned a lot just being able to see, how they're communicating with their couples, what shots they're looking for, their gear that they're using, kind of like their setup and takedown, which yeah, it 100% inspired me as a filmmaker to really be looking for like, okay, how am I communicating with my couples? And, if they're charging X amount, one day I'll be there. And this is what they're doing at that level. And so I learned a lot. And again, like this is definitely something fully that I wish I would have done more of, honestly. And even now I try to at least second shoot once a year, maybe even twice a year if I can. I wish I could do it more. But obviously it's dependent on what your calendar allows. But for me, I learned a lot. Kind of looking at my own journey in terms of like my process working with other second shooters for my business, I used to shoot everything alone.
when I first started. You had one videographer in your package, and it was me. I didn't last very long doing this, to be honest. And I think like the first thought in my head was, oh my gosh, I can't afford to include a second shooter. And so I would just do everything myself. I would set up all the gear myself, take down, film everything myself. And honestly, logistically, it was a nightmare, especially coming from a filmmaker perspective where you have to set up audio and you have to set up lighting and tripods and do so much. It was so incredibly overwhelming for me. But I did do it alone for a long time because, again, I was just like probably everyone else who's sitting here who only has one videographer and doesn't include a second shooter. I just couldn't afford it. And so I don't think it was till about, I think year 2, I would bring on some people as like an assistant. And then definitely in year 3, and maybe even at the end of year 2, I started including a second shooter in my package. And I just got to this point where I was immediately like, I'm raising my prices and I'm including a second shooter. And that one time that I raised my prices, I wasn't profiting anymore, but it was covering a second shooter for me. And I had only put in about like $400 for a second shooter per wedding, right? Which wasn't really a lot. I think 40, yeah, if it was 400, it was like $40 an hour for a 10-hour day, or a little bit more for an 8-hour day. But I included it into my package so that I could always bring on a second shooter, and that completely changed the game for me. And I think a lot of us think, well, like, what about elopements where there's only needed to be one of me? I even now to this day, like, granted, I don't shoot a lot of elopements anymore. Well, I don't really shoot any elopements anymore. But when I did, I would still bring on a second because I really, really, really think the value in at least having an assistant there or some kind of second help is so invaluable for the setup and the takedown alone. That is a huge piece of it. But for all of my weddings, I would start to bring a second shooter, and I just threw it into my pricing. And now I don't work a wedding without a second shooter, especially now getting into the luxury market and being in the luxury market, being able to have a team that can be anywhere from 2 to 5 people. It's been a crazy change. I never imagined I would work a wedding with 5 people on my team, but it's been so vital into my growth because I'm not focused on everything and anything on the wedding day. I'm able to delegate and have my team fill in for those things that I'm not able to focus on. But anyways, we're not really here to talk about like huge teams. I really want to talk about really what I value in a second shooter. And the first thing that I do want to say is you are going to get what you pay for. And really, I'm speaking to past me because I definitely remember in my first few years, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on a second shooter, and I wouldn't get videographers with a lot of experience. Granted, I have to say, every single person that I've had work for me, almost every single person I've had work for me has been a joy for the most part. Okay, we're not calling anyone out here. For the most part, has been incredible. But with that, I started to realize the more that I paid my second shooters, the more that I sought out these second shooters that had a lot of experience, the better it was for me. And it finally just became this point where I would increase my second shooter rate more and more and more, where now I'll pay anywhere from $75 an hour to $150 an hour. For me at this time, depending on who my second shooter is and based on their experience. And then plus travel. There are a lot of weddings that I will fly out my second shooter for because the experience they have is worth so much. Granted, there are some weddings where I didn't budget that much for a second shooter. I didn't anticipate paying $150 plus travel, or maybe I didn't anticipate the travel fee for a second shooter. There are some weddings, and I'm just being super honest and transparent, where I will take a hit from it because I value that second shooter enough to know that the footage that they're going to get and the ease that they're going to give me on the wedding day is far worth more than a price tag. And so I've brought filmmakers on. I flew them across the country to shoot weddings with me because I know that their skill level is going to benefit me post-production when I deliver that wedding film to my clients. And I now have a portfolio piece, and I spent a few $100s extra on my second shooter, but it was so worth it. So I really, really encourage you. You will pay for what you get, or you will get what you pay for. But I also really encourage you to think about it on the flip side, in a sense of when you're bringing in second shooters to work with you, you're also getting to learn a lot from them. That's what I have thought is so cool. You're being able to kind of play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. I 100% know that I am not the best drone operator out there. I know that I could bring in a second shooter who could be killer, who could be insane with drone work. I'm not going to be all macho, like, well, I have to do the drone just so that I can like fuel my ego and show them and feel better about myself. I'm going to bring them on and play off their strengths. If they're better at drone work than I am, then great. I want them to do the drone footage. So then I can take my time, spend it somewhere else, and spend it working on my strengths on the wedding day. Because again, this isn't about ego. This isn't about who's the better filmmaker, who's the better drone operator, who's better at lighting. This is, hey, we are here representing my brand, my team. Let's play off each other's strengths. I want you to do what you're good at. I'm going to do what I'm going to be good at. And we're going to play off that. And we teach each other things. There's so many times where I have a second shooter come in and they're getting creative with their shots. And I'm watching that and I'm like, I didn't even think about that. That is such an incredible thing to do. And on the flip side, your second shooter is also learning a lot from you as well. So really keep that in mind. That's why I genuinely will pay for experience, because not only are they benefiting me with giving me better shots and a better quality film at the end of the day, but I'm also getting to learn from them and we're getting to play off each other's strengths. And of course, just like that relief of stress that I don't have to worry about on the wedding day is far worth more than money, genuinely. When I have a good team on my wedding day, when I have a second shooter who is going to give me peace of mind, that is worth so much to me. So please, 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 I can't tell you enough. Don't underestimate or underpay your second shooters. Know that you are going to get what you pay for. I want you to allocate money towards them and really pay them for what they're worth and bring people in who can help build you up. There are many of times where I've had second shooters who are truthfully better filmmakers than me. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. I am genuinely okay with that because at the end of the day, we're both benefiting my brand. And I'm here to grow a business. I'm not here to let my ego get in the way and only bring on second shooters who I feel like aren't as good as me. I want those who are better than me working with me, truly.
Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with VidFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow.
Some things that I really value. I really value when my second shooters are on time, of course. I love it when you can show up early to the wedding day with me. I'll typically show up, anywhere of just kind of 20 minutes early and usually like 30 minutes early. And I'm just kind of, looking around, just checking out the venue. And I love when my second shooter is there, they're on time because we can kind of walk around the venue together. I can make sure they have all their SD cards, just like a nice time where we're not stressed out yet. And we can kind of get all that communication like pre-wedding day done beforehand. I also really value when you're not on your phone. I cannot say this enough. It is frustrating when I am working with someone and they're working under my brand and they pull out their cell phone during the wedding day in front of guests. I totally get it. Things come up. I've been there. I so understand. But for me, when you're representing my brand, it is so important that guests do not see a cell phone come out. Unless you're using it to reference the timeline, different story. You pull it up, you're referencing the timeline. Like I've done that. We've all done that. But there's a big difference in referencing a timeline or asking a question or calling someone, like calling me or calling another team member, than pulling out your phone and sending texts, or, you're kind of turned a little bit so maybe people can't see, but then one guest sees and they're like, oh, that videographer's on their phone. That's not a reflection of you. That's a reflection of me at the end of the day. That's a reflection of my brand. So something I really value is if something comes up, you really step away. You genuinely step away where no other guest can see you. Give me a heads up. Because like I said, it's not like this negative work environment where I'm just like, no, you cannot be on your phone at any time. I get it. I totally get it. Things come up. But it is a respect thing for me. And I know for a lot of other videographers out there that you're not on your phone in front of other wedding guests because you are representing the filmmaker that you're working with. Obviously, the other thing I value is their experience. I want someone who has years of experience. Now, granted, like there are times where I do want to help other videographers just as I had when I was younger and newer to the wedding space, where I want to bring them onto a wedding. But I think you really have to, it's hard because sometimes it goes far beyond personal and it goes to business at the end of the day. When I'm shooting a luxury wedding, I need people on my team who have experience in the luxury market, who are hard workers, and who I know can get the job done, who can work under stress and again, just work and have experience because it is my brand on the line. It's my portfolio that's being showcased at the end of this to these clients. Now, I definitely think for a lot of people, there's opportunities for you if you're just a few years in, if you're a year in, to get that experience. And that's something that I valued so much. And so I always say, like, reach out to people. You have no idea. Like, they could really use your help. This is a great way to gain experience. But I love having people who are experienced. And if there is someone newer, I think there's a great opportunity. Maybe it's like your first wedding that you want to try to get into and coming in as an assistant. As opposed to a second shooter, or vice versa. Like I said, like we're just genuinely speaking to like my brand at the moment, but there are thousands of wedding videographers out there who I know are looking for second shooters all the time. Which if you are looking for second shooters, I highly, highly, highly recommend using Second Society. I've used Second Society. I love Second Society. It's been a foundational platform for me to find second and lead shooters. And no, they're not sponsors right now. So this is not an ad. This is genuinely just my firsthand experience of using Second Society. And I really, really enjoy it. And so if you're a filmmaker out there who is looking for second shooters or lead shooters, I really highly encourage you to check out Second Society. They have filmmakers all across the country that you can research on. And that's what I've used for weddings. Like if I'm shooting a wedding in New York and maybe I don't have a personal connection, maybe I'm like, all my personal connections are busy or booked. I do think, granted, like word of mouth referrals is great. If I send a DM over and I'm like, hey, are you available? They're like, no. I'm like, who would you recommend? Because I'm going to trust those word of mouth referrals. But Second Society is really great because I can put in the location and find videographers within there. I can look at their portfolio. I can see other filmmakers that they've worked with. That really establishes that credibility for me. And I can also see if they're available. So I can kind of skip over all of the constant DMs or the Facebook group posts, and I can just go right through there on Second Society. So anyways, it's not an ad. It's genuinely just my firsthand experience. If you reach out, I mean, it would be nice if you say you found us from the We Got You podcast, but you don't have to. Some of the other things that I value in a second shooter would be their creative eye, but yet that sense of like discipline for the foundational things that I need. I at the end of the day, I love having creative wedding videographers shoot for me. However, I really want someone at the end of the day who's going to get the foundational shots that I want before they become creative. And a lot of people, I mean, maybe people disagree with this. I'd be really interested to hear about this. If you've got some thoughts, I'd love to hear your take in the Facebook group, which if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do. You can find the link on our Instagram. But for me, I really appreciate that my second shooters can get foundational quality content first. At the end of the day, I would rather have all of my footage from my second shooter just be basic, foundational, well lit, well composed, quality shots than a bunch of creative shots. Now, granted, I love the creative eye that my second shooters have. I love it. But I want the foundational things first. So if I have to choose, I want those foundational shots because I know that I'm going to get creative shots on the wedding day. I don't want to just look at a bunch of your creative shots and then be like, well, I resonate with none of these. These aren't really my style. Or maybe I'm like, this wasn't lit well. This wasn't composed well. This isn't going to go well with my videos. But if I see that you've got all the foundational stuff and then creative stuff, then I'm like, great, here's all this incredible quality foundation shots I can use. And then everything else is just a bonus if I want to use it or not. Another thing that I love is matching my personality. Again, like we're just specifically talking about my brand. And I honestly want this to be like a spark of conversation in the Facebook group this week. Because I kind of want to talk about like, what do you value in a second shooter? But for me, it is really important that I have someone who matches my personality, especially when I am working luxury weddings. I definitely do have this more like calm, reserved personality that comes with it, because I don't want to be this like all over the place, bubbly, trying to talk too much, trying to like navigate and like control everyone on the wedding day. I don't want to come off as that on a luxury wedding, because that's not the vibe. So I don't want my second shooter to mimic that personality either, because again, they're reflecting my brand. So I think it's really important when you're shooting a wedding for someone else to kind of get a feel of what the wedding is going to be like beforehand, to know like, if this is a luxury wedding, what's the vibe? Like there are some weddings that I go to where I get to have more control. I get to have more of this like bubbly, outgoing personality. And then there are weddings where I kind of just need to like shut up, be a fly on the wall, and get what I need done. And I really need a second shooter that I can trust to match that, so that I know that when they're overshooting groom prep and I'm shooting bride prep, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. I know that our personalities are easily going to match. I do think that it comes on me knowing who I'm going to hire. You shouldn't have to change who you are to second shoot with someone. But I just think it's important to like match the vibe, right? To have a personality of professionalism, because your reputation is on the line for them. And my reputation means everything to me. And so it's really important that when I find people, I'm finding people that are going to match the vibe, the personality of the wedding that I'm working. I hope that makes sense. Honestly, I would say like the last thing is recognizing when you feel like maybe you need an assistant to come with you. I think there honestly have been quite a few weddings this last year that I worked where I had a second shooter with me. It was so incredibly helpful to have a second, but also to have an assistant. As I said, every single wedding I have a second shooter, but then for some of those weddings where it's like the timeline's a little tight, or maybe there's like absolutely zero time for drone work and I need a videographer to capture the drone stuff here because this venue is going to be insane, I'm going to bring on someone to do that. Maybe on the timeline, the turnaround time is so incredibly tight from ceremony to reception, I need an assistant to help me with all the setup and takedown so that myself and my second shooter can be focused otherwise. There's a lot of times for that. And again, I think having an assistant, this can be a great way for a newer videographer to kind of get a feel for what working weddings with you is like, where you're just having them help you with the setup and the takedown, setting up audio, setting up the lights. You'd be surprised at how much help they can be. And again, I say it time and time again, but the stress that they take off my plate is far worth more than the money. And so obviously you pay your second and you pay your assistant, you pay anyone that's on your team. But I think just recognizing when it's important. You don't want to overwork your second shooter. Obviously, your second shooter is there to help and serve you, but they can only do so much. They can only do as much as you're doing. And so you have to be realistic when you look at that timeline, or when you're writing the proposal for this wedding quote and being like, I need to have an assistant here. There are lots of weddings where I'll get inquiries and I just know from right off the bat, I'm like, I need to bring on a third who's just an assistant, or I need to bring on a third who's a videographer and an assistant. So just kind of recognizing those things. And there's so many different things we can talk about. And I know some of you in your head might just be like, I just can't afford it. And I encourage you, raise your prices right now and include it. You're going to have to take the risk. You're going to have to include a second at some point when you're working these big weddings, because it is so overwhelming and so much. And then when you're not able to get all the footage that you need, or when you're stressed out and your bride and groom and your couple or your planner or the vendors can see that you're stressed out, you're taking a hit from that. Your reputation is taking a hit from that. People notice. And so it's so incredibly vital to bring on a second shooter to expand your team. And so, yeah, I would love to know what you value in a second shooter. Please put it in our Facebook group. Like I said, the link is in the Instagram bio, or you can go on our Facebook page. The group is We Got You. But hop in there. I want to know what you value. I want to know if there's anything you disagree with. I want to know if there's anything that you value that maybe I didn't mention. But again, yeah, thanks for listening to another episode on the We Got You podcast. And I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.